Well, you're right. We're in the midst of a lot of experimentation, a lot of experimentation, a lot of trial and error. But what we're really doing is, I think, trying to figure out a new balance. It's a balance in the value exchange between the consumer, the viewer, and the provider of that content. Right? We've grown up with kind of clear terms of engagement. You could sit back on the couch and you kind of knew the exchange. You would enjoy the show in exchange for those commercials. But a couple things have started to undermine that value exchange. Things have started to undermine that kind of comfortable, known experience. For better or for worse, or like it or not, we have to acknowledge like what's really happened with ad skipping. It's something. It's many cases the elephant in the room, but ad skipping, whether or not someone ad skips, what we really have to look at is the generation of young people who never knew anything else. Right? And it's really important to also think about that generation of young people as having also grown up with YouTube in parallel. So those two factors together, this idea of technologies that allowed for ad skipping or ad avoidance, and things like Facebook, and the third gorilla in the room or elephant in the room is really ends up being services like Netflix and other SVOD services. So in a way, we as in the premium content industry have to think about the challenges that we're faced with right now as a stew of those ingredients. Right? And it really means coming up with new ad products and a new value exchange that makes sense for the viewer given all of those other options. So for us, we're really excited about how that premium content ad experience starts to change, especially on phones. Right, because when we look at how people are experiencing the news, sports, and some of their favorite shows, like the data is shocking, and the time spent on these devices. And so all of a sudden we have like new things to play with, right? So for example, people are touching the content a lot more. Like the idea of interactive television is a 20-year-old empty promise, but the idea of touching on a video on YouTube to subscribe to a channel or follow someone on a social network is completely business as usual. That's just like, and we really have to look at what does that mean as a premium content broadcaster, right? What does it mean to have had generations of people growing up with those capabilities, and how do we take from the best of that experience and create new products? So for example, you take a local broadcaster's nightly news program, and many people are at the stage where they're figuring out how to take that linear feed and break it up into clips and put that onto their website or into their app. But we need to go a step further. We need to actually think about, well, how do you interact with those videos? Like, is there a way that you can follow the talent? Is there a way you can follow a newscaster? Even if it's something as simple as just a on-screen graphic that pops up and says, follow me on Twitter. Because Twitter is now a new way for that distribution to be meaningful. Same thing with Facebook. We have to think about, as broadcasters, how do these native digital capabilities touch our product? And if we're going to kind of really look at that in the bigger picture, what it really means is we have to change the definition of the broadcaster's product. So instead of just shooting video and putting a video feed out there, right? You've got your video feed, you've got your audio feed. We actually have to start thinking about that data layer, right? Like what is the URL that you want someone to click on at that moment, right? What are the Twitter handles of the talent you want to drive someone to? And so if you tell a broadcast engineer that, all of a sudden, like they've solved the problem. Oh, I got it. I've got a workflow. I'm going to produce video, I'm going to produce audio, and I'm going to produce data that I'm going to distribute out to digital devices to activate that video. It actually becomes a really simple problem. I appreciate you moving the checkers faster down the board there. You pointed to something really important. So one thing is the data to drive the consumer experience. The next step is to use that data to actually drive ad targeting. So I'm with you. That's really important. And then you get to the kind of that third question of, well, great, how do I do that efficiently in my existing workflows? And I appreciate that nice camera there has some metadata feature, but it's a little bit like that line in The Graduate, right? Plastics, right? It's everything and it's nothing. And so metadata is really like that, because like the metadata that camera is able to capture, I would assume it's things like GPS, time of day. So this question of where does the data come from efficiently actually comes back to workflow. So one of the most exciting things that we've found is the treasure chest of rich metadata in iNews and eNPS systems. So those, obviously, it's a little different than a field production setup. Oh, sorry about that. It's a little different than a field production setup where you're right, it's you and the camera and the wind, and good luck getting some metadata into that. But if you go further upstream into the broadcast workflows, whether it's news or other kind of control room productions, being able to think about that workflow metadata is extremely valuable. It's also, we're finding, great to be able to go back to things like in cable television, drama, and fiction, unlikely sources, prop, wardrobe. These are all like well springs of valuable data, and without wanting to be self-promotional, that's really what Watchwith as a company has specialized in for many years, in creating the workflow and metadata management tools so that you can then distribute that data layer out to different digital distribution points. No, good. I appreciate it. It's great. They're great questions. So originally we approached the problem from the perspective of creation and management. And so we spent many years actually just on those tools and the management layer so that you could get all of your data in wherever it was coming from, whether it was from wardrobe or from a smart producer or from a ENPS news system, getting all that data into one place. Then we focused on how to retime that dynamically so that when you're doing a commercial load, East Coast or West Coast linear ad load, you could retime it dynamically. As we watched what the market was doing, we moved from just providing an API to providing the client-side SDKs. In a way, we're now in a world where HTML5 is ubiquitous enough so we can really provide a library, a software library. Think of it as a web view. It's a web view that sits on top of any video player with pretty lightweight hooks into those players. That strategy works really nicely on desktop, in mobile, and over-the-top devices, as well as in the new IP-based set-top boxes coming from all the big guys, right, in hybrid IP set-top boxes. And it's really exactly that, this new layer of IP-based digital distribution, the ability to call an external data source and to mesh those at the glass, at the user experience layer. That is the starting gun for a whole new set of native video experiences. And so when you look at what are those native video experiences? What are the things that we can now do in video that we could not do unless we were on a two-way IP-connected device. And so I like to always point to some of the most obvious things that people forget. You look at YouTube annotations, and now YouTube cards. Like, that is a great model of where video's going. You're interested in something, click that little eye, it comes out, teases you, you click it, you get the card layer. Or while you're watching something, it asks you, would you like to subscribe? Do you want to follow? Amazon's X-Ray, another great example. You're watching a show, at any moment you touch the screen, it tells you who the actors are, what the music is. Beautiful. That can only happen on a digital device. And I'll share one last example to hopefully inspire broadcasters and people coming out of this from the linear world to really inspire thinking about those new capabilities. Something as simple as watching Netflix, and the moment the credits roll, you get a shrink back and it says, would you like to watch the next episode, right? What led to binge watching. Those are native video features. All of those native video features rely on metadata so that you can take advantage of the moment, that emotional resonance of that moment, to then describe that opportunity to follow, that opportunity to buy, or that opportunity to go deeper. And we all love television because it's been a dream machine, right? It's made people's desires and curiosity flourish. And to be able to take that dream machine and now make it so that you can move on that, so that you can take action, so you can turn that curiosity or desire into action, that's the next 100 years. It's true. We've worked at the technical solutions to these problems for a long time. And in the early days, we had a very simple mantra to help keep the product and engineering and marketing and whole team on board of what we're doing. And it was very simple. It's hard to believe, but we really just kept going with the vision that every frame has a highest bidder. Every moment of television has a highest bidder for a combination of that moment of the content and that moment of the viewer, right? And where those things come together, like who wants to be that layer of curiosity and desire for you while you're watching, right? And we think that's really the economic underpinnings of what is going to prove to be the financial engine of video in the future.